Philip Smidth is one of those architects that you don't really notice, but who are so important for the fabric of the city. Designing mostly residential buildings all around Copenhagen, he has been known and ignored by generations of inhabitants. Working mostly in bricks and adhering to the general trend of historicism that was current in his time, he doesn't do flashy. He does regular, run-of-the-mill, but always solid buildings. The wide horizontal bands are straight out of a handbook for historicism. Perhaps the finest example of this style was the large block of flats that he signed for A.N. Scholden on the demanding position just across from the new Carlsberg Glyptotek. His ability to get the most out of corners in the inner city are legio. The cut-off corners are typical of inner city and really doesn't have anything to do with his style. It's a legacy of the big conflagration of the 18th century that led to the demand that you build like this so that the fire engines could round the corners. It didn't matter if the corner was to an open square like the present day Politiken. And if you were lucky, you could get both corners like here at Palægade. Note that this is not the innermost city, so the cut-off corners do not apply. His favorite building materials, as also many of his contemporary colleagues, was that of red brick, but he did show that he could build with plaster. From the rather small corner building for carpenter Christian Dahl to the much more massive building on the corner of Adolf Stensallé and Warsawvej, less than a block from the previous. Incidentally, those three buildings were all in the neighboring municipality of Frederiksberg, but he did use plaster in Copenhagen also. His mastery of different styles is vividly displayed at this peculiar building. The Gamma Delta Epsilon is a block that looks like three different buildings, but they are in fact both designed and built simultaneously. Only a short distance away, you find this impressive building that was supposed to be the grand entrance to the city, though rather naively the gate is much too small for the traffic that actually evolved. His later residential buildings became increasingly massive. A peculiar example is St. Thomas, not named after the saint directly, but named after the island. It replaced the summer residence of a former plantation owner who named it after his island. The developer didn't want any backyard, so the main street runs through the building, and this is how it looks behind it. Teaming up with building society could lead to some truly giants of the time. So far, I have concentrated on his residential buildings, but he did produce a number of commercial buildings also. The flagpoles are not something you would see on a purely residential building. The former offices of Kastrup Glassworks has been taken over by a trade union. Even purely industrial buildings belong to his credentials, including this producer of elevators. I haven't shown any public works by him, but that's because he didn't produce any in Copenhagen. We have to go to other places, like for instance this church. Note though that the tower is younger. In fact, one of his largest projects was the hospital in the neighboring municipality. Built in several stages, you really have to know what to look for to figure out which building belonged to what period. Philip Smidth should be remembered for his versatility and his productivity.